Hello, and welcome to PCI Webinars. Today's webinar, Bring on the Carnival Fun, Creating Large-Scale Community Programming with April Watkins. April has worked with children in some capacity her entire adult life, including 6 years as a high school journalism teacher and 5 years as a children's librarian. She can regularly be seen rocking rainbow knee-high socks, tulle skirts, blue hair, and pigtails as she embodies her childhood heroes, Rainbow Bright, Punky Brewster, and Princess Leia. She loves scrapbooking, alternative music, dystopian YA novels, Star Wars, and binge watching. April has a BS in education from Bowling Green State University and an MA in Library and Information Sciences from the University of South Florida. She currently serves as the Early Childhood Services Senior Librarian for Suffolk Public Library, where she has started a citywide reading initiative, launched a large-scale community carnival, and transformed the way SPL conducts early literacy outreach. She lives in Smithfield, Virginia with her husband, 2 sons, and their very large St. Bernard. Coming to you now from Virginia, it's April Watkins.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. As Anne said, my name is April Watkins, and I am the Early Childhood Services Senior Librarian for Suffolk Public Library in Suffolk, Virginia. I have worked for SPL since 2017, and I'm currently working on planning our 3rd annual carnival. I feel it's important to give you all a little bit of information about Suffolk before I explain more about how I created the carnival and how you can replicate this in your system. I want to remind you to keep the questions and comments coming in the chat box. I'll be answering them as we go along. And really, when I take a webinar, I find I learn a lot from my peers in the comments section too. So definitely keep those coming. So here's some things you need to know about the City of Suffolk and Suffolk Public Library. We have a population of 91,000 residents, with Black or African American representing 42% of the population, and 52% of the population is white. We are the 10th largest city in Virginia by population and the fastest growing city in the Hampton Roads area. But we are the largest city in Virginia by landmass. We have an overall poverty rate of 11%, but our downtown population has an overall poverty rate of 30%. Our city is divided between a rural area, an urban area, and a suburban area. And we sort of resemble a county more than a city, but we had several small cities that kind of folded together to make one large city. So we're actually not even part of a county. We have a library location in each of these respective areas, and our library to go, which is what we call our bookmobile, operates as a 4th library location. Our locations have very limited programming space, and that space is actually shared with adults and children's programming. And our summer reading program is sponsored and funded exclusively from our Friends of the Library group, meaning that it is not a part of our actual annual city budget. And that'll become important later on in this webinar. So really, why am I telling you this? Well, the way that we do things in Suffolk, our main initiative is providing experiences that the community would not otherwise have. And because of the way our city is designed, models here, one-size-fits-all models just do not work here. So we really have to be open to change and trying new things. And also, I feel like the things we do here, because of the way our city is designed, they're very adaptable for other cities and other systems. So what do I mean when I say large-scale programming? Well, that will likely depend on your community. Generally, at Suffolk Public Library, we use the term for large-scale programming when we have more than 100 people attend. And more importantly, these programs are actually system-wide. They're not branch-specific, and we plan them across library locations. So people that work at one location and another, they're all working together to plan these. In 2018, we had our first carnival, and we had 500 people attend. In 2019, which was our second year, we had just over 650. But what I would encourage you to do is review your stats for your community and your programming, and that'll help you determine your definition of large scale. But for this webinar, that is what definition I'm going by. Okay, now that you know a little bit more about Suffolk, let me tell you why we started our carnival. So we actually host our carnival to celebrate the end of our summer reading program. I don't think it's necessary to tie a carnival to your SRP, but I would definitely suggest creating a carnival that celebrates an accomplishment that your community has made together. Our SRP is actually a community reading goal, so we are celebrating the community reaching that goal. I'll explain a little bit more about that later too. So I'm curious, do any of you have some sort of end of summer celebration or big celebration you're already doing with your libraries? You can go ahead and say it in the comments if you have anything. It looks like some people are typing. I'll come back to that in just a second. So in 2018, we hosted our first carnival, and I've served as the project manager on this carnival since the beginning. Oh, okay, so we have one person saying we have in the past had a large scale program. Okay. And we do Fandomanium, a big fan Comic-Con type thing. Yeah, we have that too. That's awesome. I think that's becoming really, really popular in libraries, is doing some sort of Comic-Con event. We do Iconicon in our library. In Makerfest, oh, I'm so jealous of that. We don't have the space for even having a maker space, so that would be amazing. All right, so as I said, I started as a project manager in 2018. The current trend in libraries across the country is to create experiences for library users that often face barriers that prohibit them from the experience. In doing so, libraries are actually spending a lot of money to provide free programs on a much smaller scale, but a community carnival is an opportunity to have a broader impact and to involve overlooked community partners and resources. This type of program does not have to be budget busting either. It is possible to create a large scale program for the whole community without charging for any of it. I'll say that again, without charging for any of it. My goal has always been to create a carnival that has all the bells and whistles for absolutely no cost to our participants. Now, that may sound like a bit of a stretch, but I promise you, I'm going to share some budget stretching tips as we go along. Oh, and here's another comment. Miami-Dade Public Library hosts a family fest at the end of summer. That's really cool too. I like that. I truly wanted this to be about celebrating our community. And as I said, we have a very diverse community, and they don't always have the financial means to indulge in things like a carnival. So in addition to creating a free event, I wanted to host the carnival in a location that was walkable to our most financially burdened community. So we needed to find a space downtown. Now, we don't have a downtown that has high rises or things like that, but it is a congested downtown area. So this was a little bit of a challenge. So as I said previously, space in our libraries, it's limited. And the scale we were looking for meant that we would need a lot of space, and inside our library would just not happen. So we wanted to preferably have this outdoors. For us, that meant that we basically claimed a vacant city-owned lot downtown. Just a side note, this lot actually was earmarked for a new library location for us downtown, but we've been trying to get this location since 1999 and have not been able to get it approved yet. So we just sort of claimed the land as our own. If you don't have a large outdoor space that you can use for your carnival, think about a city-owned parking lot, or even possibly using your library location's parking lot and just closing that off. We're doing ours in August, and I know in August in Florida, it is super hot. I lived in Florida. I totally get it. It's pretty hot in here, Virginia, too. So maybe you want to host yours indoors. And if you want to do that, maybe think about a rec center in the area or a really large building with somebody you would like to partner with. This is a great opportunity to build a good relationship with your Parks and Rec department, which is a challenge. So also think about parking space for your participants who do drive to the event. Honestly, for our event, we needed a lot of space, but it's totally possible to start this smaller and build it into something bigger. I would also like to point out that library management and I chose our date and venue prior to forming a planning team. Since we used a city-owned lot, we did ultimately have to seek permission from the city, which meant that our library director was involved in that process. If you do have to navigate the political waters of a city department, I would definitely encourage you to work with your library director to do so, as they have more connections at that level due to the nature of their job. I would also suggest building your planning team while you're waiting for approval from your venue. It isn't worth rushing to try to pull everything together, since oftentimes permission for venues can be a lengthy process. Ultimately, do some research about what the process is for reserving city spaces in your community. There's likely already one in place. And pro tip, a lot of cities have policies that allow space to be reserved by other city departments for free or at a deeply discounted price. So this is your first money-saving tip. I've learned that the best way to get a discount is just to ask for a discount. All right. Anything in the, nope, nothing new in the chat box. Okay. All right. So the first year I led the carnival, I had a team of 5 other people working with me on the event. Remember, I said we had 500 people come to this. So there were 6 of us that planned all of it. The day of the event, we actually had 3 additional staff members and 5 volunteers on hand to lead the different stations that we had. Since we weren't sure what sort of crowd to expect, we didn't know how many staff we would actually need. In 2019, for year 2, we doubled our team. I had a planning team of 12, which included myself, 2 community members, and 10 additional staff. The day of the event, I had 20 volunteers and an additional 3 staff members to lead stations and events. So you can see from year 1, we just had so many more people working on this on year 2, behind the scenes and also the day of. So essentially, in 1 year, we tripled the workforce for the day. Will your carnival grow that quickly? I have no idea. I would say each community is different. And given the nature of Suffolk and how spread out we are, we honestly didn't know we would have that kind of crowd, ever. So here's some suggestions I have for building your team. Review the team size of previously large-scale events for your library has hosted. Create a quick brainstorm of how many carnival areas you would want. So things like games, inflatables, refreshments, all that kind of stuff. Determine the length of your event. Our first year, we were 4 years, and that was a little too long. So we went to 3 years for year 2, and that's what we'll be doing for this year as well. Determine how often you would like your staff and volunteers to have breaks. My staff the first year was a little crazy and told me that they didn't want to take a lunch, and we all almost passed out. So it was a bad idea. So we took breaks last year, and we will be doing that again this year. And use that data to help you create your team. If you're the kind of project manager that prefers a smaller planning team, I would suggest having one team member per event that you're planning. Per event area, excuse me. So this person can lead that portion for the carnival itself. If you're the kind of project manager that prefers having team members work in pairs as area leads, double that number. My personal preference is to bring in a lot of people up front, so there are more people who with a thorough knowledge of the intricacies of the event during the actual event. You never know who's going to flake. Volunteers may not show up, but your core team will be there for you. So my biggest advice on this topic is not to try this alone. I know it can be tempting. I'm a children's librarian. We tend to just take the ball and run with it and do everything on our own, but it will not work. It's just too much work for one person. So take this as an opportunity to build your resume with some project management experience and create yourself a team. Pro tip, depending on your library's staff size, you may need to bring in other library departments for this type of event. The Youth and Family Services Department where I work actually only has 8 staff members. And so we open up our large events to other departments. In both years, I've had members of the Adult Services team and our Circulation department. Our non-programming staff have to obtain approval from their supervisor and department manager in order to participate. But I've found, especially in the summer, it's more of an all-hands-on-deck situation in libraries. So it's a really great opportunity for someone who's considered joining a programming position or applying for those positions, that they can really build their resume and say that they already have programming experience. So just don't do it alone. It will be a lot. All right, so as I previously mentioned, we included community members in our planning on our planning team for year 2. So we do a lot of self-reflection and community feedback in Suffolk, and we really work hard to give the community members what they really want. And after reading our evaluation forms from 2018, we just had a thought: why not just bring in community members to help with on the ground level? And it wasn't that the feedback was necessarily negative. It was actually overwhelmingly positive. But one question we asked was, what would you like to see next year? And it just seemed like this was a logical way to get some community members into the planning process of the library and have some more ownership over what we were doing. So that's what we did for 2019. I would love to tell you that we hit the nail on the head with this one, but that is not how it happened. We simply asked 2 patrons that we had a good rapport with, who we knew had enough connections to the community that their input would be valuable. And while that sort of worked to a degree, our volunteers were never as invested as I would have liked them to have been. I think having community members on your team is a great way to really strengthen relationships with the community, but I would recommend vetting your candidates and having more of a selection process. So an application process where you choose people. I don't know that you necessarily have to go all the way to interviewing, but that could be something you would decide on your own. But I feel like this would give them more of a sense of ownership, because neither of the women that we had on our team in 2019 were ever fully invested. One actually didn't even come to the carnival, so she wasn't invested at all. And it's something that I took personally as the person in charge. So I'm curious, though, have any of you tried including community members in your planning process? And how did that go over for you? Because honestly, I would love suggestions from you. Anybody? All right, let's move on then. All right, so this is the first. Sorry, let me back up. So for our first year of the carnival, we discovered that our venue was actually a lot bigger than what we had planned for. And to be honest, I'm not really great with spatial visioning, so I thought we had a lot of booths, but we were really just spreading things out over a lot of land, and it sort of looked like that in the end. So here's the thing, though. While our funds increased slightly in 2019, and I do mean slightly, there was absolutely no way to financially support a carnival of the magnitude that we were hoping for. So we asked for community partners. So do some brainstorming with me. Think about the vendors and community partners that are your go-to for events. These could be places that you go on outreach or free services that are offered to your community. Maybe you've hosted them in the library, or it's a potential partner that you really want to find the right place to fit them in. You get the idea. That's what we did. We made a list of our existing partners and other departments and community resources that we could fit easily into our carnival, and then we reached out to them for help. I asked partners to create a carnival-friendly station for their table. So this could be a game, which is what you're seeing here. Our visitor center made like a Plinko board. or they could share some sort of talent like juggling. But either way, it had to be interactive. So we offered to supply prizes for our partners if they really wanted. However, they were all really happy to use their own branded materials to promote their services. We did not charge our community member partners for space at the event, since essentially they were helping us out by donating their time. And we ended up with 10 community partner booths at this event last year, including a fire truck for the kids to explore and free face painting. It was awesome. All we had to do was ask. Pro tip, be sure to reach out to potential event partners early in your programming process. They'll need time to secure staff for the event on their end, and you'll want to be sure how many community partners to expect. With that being said, be in constant contact with your partners. Send out reminder info and updates on the event. Make sure the partners have accurate information. And finally, do a double check the week of the event to make sure that all of you are on the same page as far as space that's needed, tents, tables, chairs, rain info. We're dealing with an outdoor event here, so what happens if it rains? Really anything that's unique to your event. I would also suggest providing refreshments and thank you cards, maybe even cool down stations that are for your partners, because if you keep them happy, they will keep coming back. All right, I do see a comment here. We had members of our friends group involved in our Comic-Con, but not members of our community. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. Friends from the group from your friends. Our friends that are not as active in our programming, they fund it, but they don't really do a lot in-house. And a lot of friends groups do book sales, so ours does too, but they have a completely separate building. So they're not really as involved in the process of planning. But that's a really good idea to bring them in. I mean, they do support us financially. Okay. So similar to community partners, your event could include vendors. Side note, it is our library's policy to not charge vendors for event space. This was a precedent that was already existed before we started our carnival, so we had to keep that policy. However, we did note on all of our marketing materials that vendors would be available at a cost to the attendee. Because remember, this carnival is free. People are not expected to have to pay for anything. If your library does not have a vendor policy, this could actually be a moneymaker for your event. You would have to navigate it through your friends group, since we're a government entity, so we can't take in funds that way. But a lot of vendor opportunities, they're charging between $35 and $50 for a table. So people are paying to sell their goods at events anyway. That's a totally normal thing. So this could be a fundraiser for your event. But definitely, if you're not going to charge for vendors, I still think it's a good idea to include them. And pro tip, vet your vendors. We require our vendors to fill out an online application. We've actually found that Google Forms is really helpful for this. And we review all of the applications and only accept vendors who fit the theme of our event. Since we're offering a free table, we got a lot of requests from direct sales companies. And they're not all carnival friendly. Some of them were actually requiring electricity, which were outdoors, so we did not have a lot of electricity. So they were denied just for that reason alone. But some of our vendors included some direct sales companies, a home business that she sews fleece items, a comic book artist, and an owl rescue. So why was the owl rescue not a community partner? Well, they had items for sale that benefited their mission. And so we included them as a vendor to signify that there were goods for sale there. But look how adorable that owl is. So cute. All right, time to get real here. Numbers are not my thing. Budgets are not my thing. But you cannot take on an event like this without putting some numbers on a spreadsheet and making sure everyone is getting their piece of the pie. See what I did there? Piece of the pie. The easiest way for me to create a budget was to use Google Sheets. My system uses an online project management program that makes it really easy to share information with your team. and let it live in that project folder, it's a bit easier than having to access a network drive or emailing information back and forth. And I'm not suggesting that your library purchase anything, because here's a fairly obvious pro tip. Google Drive is free. You just need a Google account, which is also free. I used Google Sheets, and I created a multi-tab spreadsheet that included all relevant information my team would need to access during the planning of the event. On the final slide of this presentation, I've actually got a QR code on there. You can scan that and you can access my spreadsheets. Feel free to adapt them to whatever you need that would help you. And you can actually see what I'm talking about here. So here are my definitely not pro tips for budgeting. Start with what you know. How much money will you have for this event? Where is that money coming from? Who do you have to make requests to when you need to access that money? Who is in charge of purchasing items? And are there opportunities to add funds through fundraising? Next, prioritize the big ticket items you'll be purchasing to help you divide your money appropriately. Create a separate category for each event, like entertainment, crafts, rentals, etc. Set purchasing request deadlines for your team and insist that they meet them. Update your spreadsheet with each line item being purchased. Update your spreadsheet as bills are paid. And keep an eye on your dwindling funds. You don't want to overdraw your account. You're dealing with local government funds, and that should not be taken lightly. It's definitely difficult to stay on budget, but do your best. In case you're wondering how much our carnival costs, in 2018, we had a budget of $1,500. In 2019, our budget increased to $2,000. Given our attendance both years, this worked out to about $3 per guest, which is pretty fantastic for a carnival. And if you're looking for a selling point as to why you should do this with your library leadership, this is why. $3, free carnival. It's pretty great. And again, remember, I did say ours was paid for by our friends group. So get them on board with you. So it should come as no surprise that the most expensive components of your carnival are going to be the rentals. It would be awesome if you already know someone that would let you buy a high wattage, as in can run an entire house generator. Maybe with hurricane prep, your library even has one. We rent 2 for our carnival. Actually, we're increasing that to 3 this year. And generators tend to run between $50 and $80 in my area. So as far as rentals go, those are not bad. The big cost comes from other types of rentals. This train that you see here was $400 for the day. It included the driver, and it included the setup and traveling to our carnival. Other things that you could rent include games, a water sprinkling rainbow. That has been a big seller for us both years. They've loved that. And of course, bounce houses. And I'd like to tell you that the best way to save money on your rentals is to price shop. And while that is definitely a best place to start, here are some money-saving tips for rentals. Start early price hunting. There are a lot of rental companies out there, and they will often compete for your business, especially if they can be a one-stop shop to provide more than one thing for you. Ask for a discount. We're a public library, so a lot of the time companies will offer a discount as a tax write-off for their company. Ask local churches and other service groups to help. We actually discovered that a member of my team went to a church who owned 6 bounce houses. The church actually owned 6 bounce houses. So we contacted them, and they were more than willing to donate the usage of two of them, including setting them up and manning them during the event. All we did was provide the wattage to blow them up. You could also have community partners and businesses sponsor components of your carnival. You would just note this on a sign that says, this popcorn machine is provided by fill in blank here. Don't forget the toilets. If you're hosting the event off-site, you'll need to rent some porta potties. They can be pricey. Be sure to check with your city to see if they have an existing contract with a porta potty company. The company will likely give you the best deal on the rental, and you're probably required to use them anyway. Other large ticket items are entertainment and events for your carnival. Our first carnival, we really wanted to hire some performers to make a spectacle, but our budget didn't allow it. And we also didn't have a carnival that first year, which was a true heartbreak to me. But in year 2, with so many partners on board, we had some wiggle room to bring in some entertainment. I have a friend who's a caricature artist locally who offered a discount to us to provide caricatures to as many guests as the time frame would allow, which ended up being about 30. And we also hired a local company who manages talent to provide a stilt walker, a juggler, and a magician. We hired each for an hour to do roving acts, and the stilt walker was a real showstopper. We staggered the performers so they overlapped each other, but we left our first half an hour of the carnival and our last half an hour of our carnival without entertainment. We wanted to give people a time to arrive, and we had something special planned for that last 30 minutes. But let me just tell you, hiring entertainers is not the only way to jazz up your event. Relay races, donut eating contests, water fights, crafts, talent shows, and pie eating contests are great additions to your carnival. They're also pretty inexpensive. A lot of the materials for these events are things you already have on hand at the library. The donuts that the kids are eating here, they were actually day-olds that were donated from a local donut shop. Again, never hurts to ask. And let's be honest, the thing your guests will remember are not necessarily the games they played, but the activities they engaged in. So, money-saving pro tip, local business donations make excellent prizes for your planned events. And my spreadsheet also shares our scheduled events that we had for our carnival last year. We have a sign-in sheet for our events at the registration table the day of the carnival, and we post the schedule on social media ahead of time to generate buzz. We do not do sign-ups ahead of time anymore. Regarding the carnival, we tried that the first year, and people just wouldn't necessarily be there, or they would forget or whatever. So we did the sign-ups the day of the event. Okay. Y'all, I just want to remind you, if you have any questions, keep them coming. I am watching the chat box. Since I mentioned the registration table, let me take a moment to explain why this table can be a statistics lifesaver. There are 2 ways to track your guest count for stat purposes at large-scale events. You can count everyone, or you can estimate. We chose to count everyone by offering a registration table. Our event is free, so the registration table gives people a chance to fill out a complimentary raffle ticket. All of the prizes are things from local businesses that have been donated, and they also get a wristband. And this is how we count them. You can buy these wristbands on Amazon. They're really inexpensive. The raffle ticket, like I said, it's a real draw to the table. And again, it's just donated prizes. Libraries have a nonprofit status, so if you share that with the local business, they actually benefit from donating to your event. And they probably gained a new customer from the experience. We've raffled off everything from gift cards to edible arrangements. The local Chuck E. Cheese donates a pizza pack that's a family 4 experience at Chuck E. Cheese, including tokens. Our registration table also has water and popcorn. So if the raffle ticket doesn't bring them over, the smell of popcorn will. All right, I mentioned a few times that we kept this event free for our guests. And one way that we do that is we provide very little in the area of refreshments. I mentioned the popcorn and water on the previous slide. Those are the only food items that we pay for. We scheduled food trucks and carts to provide heartier items for the guests. And these items are sold to the guests, and we do not pay a fee to have the vendors on site. I would not suggest having a variety of food trucks at your event because many of them have competition clauses in their contracts, and you'll end up paying fees if they don't meet their daily sales goals. Our first year, we offered 1 truck, and it had a good variety of kid-friendly foods, so that went over okay. In 2019, we intended to have 3 trucks, a Kona ice truck, a funnel cake truck, and a Mediterranean option that had vegan and kid-friendly food. Notice that I said intended to. Here's the reality of food trucks. They are not reliable. If you're not offering them an incentive to be at your event and you cannot guarantee a good take, they will abandon you for a better offer. It's just business to them, but it can be pretty devastating to you as the lead. The morning of our event in 2019, we had our two main food trucks bail, and we were down to a truck of slushies. We really lucked out that our local paper had just written an article about a man who ran a hot dog cart downtown. That's him. And he was willing to come to our event with only 30 minutes notice, which was amazing. Not fun to do the morning of the event, though. The other area of concern is for concessions is the health department has some hoops to jump through. And you can end up having a vendor pulled from the event the day of your event. Of course, you want vendors with good reputations who are licensed for your event so that your guests won't get sick. But here's something I found out the hard way. Having a license in one city does not necessarily mean that your vendor will be approved in your city. In 2019, I found out the week of the event that the health department wanted a copy of every license. We had never dealt with the health department before in any of our events, and we had had several events that included food vendors. This was the first time they reached out to us. Side note, my director was super happy about that because that quote unquote meant we were getting noticed. As the lead, I was less happy about that. So the morning of the event, we actually had a health inspector show up. There was absolutely no notice. She just showed up to inspect the trucks, and none of our trucks had arrived yet. And we were flat out told that when she decided to leave, if they weren't here, we couldn't have them at our event. Let me tell you, this is the last thing you want to deal with the day of your event. Since our library had never dealt with the health department before, I was caught completely off guard. This year, we've already reached out to the health department. We have our food trucks booked, hopefully. They've said yes, but again, I've said that, food trucks can be flaky. We've already reached out to the health department to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row. And keep this in mind if you intend to have food vendors at your event. It can be a bit of a headache, but it's a really great way to connect with local businesses and food vendors. Plus, a carnival is never really complete without a hot dog. Sorry, I had to take a drink there. All right. So while we're on the topic of food trucks, I'd like to share some social media tips for promoting your event. So we ran several campaigns to promote our event through social media. And one of those campaigns was hiding water bottles throughout our city with $5 food vouchers for the carnival. This can be a little risky, given the fact that I've told you that food trucks can be flaky, but it was really visually appealing. We had secret clues on our Instagram page to share where people could find these. And when they found them, they were supposed to take a picture with them, and it worked out really well. So other social media campaigns we held were, we have a Facebook event page, which is free advertising. We unveiled elements of the carnival and gave big clues to what sort of big events we'd be having. We actually allowed our vendors to market on the Facebook event page, so it was free marketing for them to share what they would have at the carnival. And we did some fantastic videos to hype up the event to really get people excited. Both years, we also had an interactive voting element. So last year, we elected our camp counselors. Our theme is Camp SPL. So last year, we elected camp counselors that would kick off the finale event, which is on the next slide. That's what you're seeing here. I was a part of the team Terrific Teal. And it was with another woman in my department. We came up with different personas of Nifty Natalie and Artsy April. And we campaigned for the honor of kicking off the finale event by promoting curiosity. And spoiler alert, we won. I was very excited we won. The first year, we actually voted on some up-to-no-good library staff members who were wanted for ridiculous crimes like organizing books by color, and they would pay for their crimes by being slimed at the carnival. So that brings me to the grand finale events. If there is one thing you take away from this webinar, let it be this. Use your carnival as a way to celebrate your community of readers in a really big way. In 2018, we chose to slime 3 staff members as voted on by the community. Sneaky Shauna, Devious Deborah, and Atomic April. Yes, I won both years. They were all the evil librarians chosen to be slimed. Don't worry, we actually all volunteered for that. It was actually sort of like living my 90s Nickelodeon kid dream, so it was fantastic. But sliming was only cool for us, and we wanted to create something that involved the whole community. So we created a 0K color run, because running is hard, and it's too hot to run in August. So we bought the colored powder online, and we just let everyone throw it up and create this huge, like, visually stimulating, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous to witness event. And it was memorable to everyone who would not have a chance to do something like this otherwise. It is really expensive to join color runs, really any sort of marathon. They're really expensive. So this is a free 0K color run. Plus, y'all, these pictures are all over our marketing right now because they are just gorgeous. All right, let me check in the chat box. No new comments. Okay. All right, my assistant director always tells our leadership that we should be a duck. Always be a duck. So on the surface, you look calm and collected, like nothing is troubling you. But under the surface, your legs are paddling really, really, really fast to keep you moving and keep you on top of the water. Basically, never let them see you sweat. Well, here's a picture of me after setting up, running, and tearing down our carnival. I am sunburned and sweaty and covered in color powder, and all around, I am just grimy. It is not a glamorous picture. It's the reality of running an outdoor event for 7 hours in the summer. I encourage you the day of your event to handle every problem that comes your way quickly and decisively. But I want you to know that it is okay to say, you know what? I need a break. We are not ducks. We are humans. We have emotions. We get tired. We get hungry. We get sunburned. I do believe that the best leaders of large-scale events are detail-oriented people who plan a lot of backups just in case. But there is absolutely no way the entire thing will go off without a hitch, no matter what you have planned. So I say, don't be a duck. Be a Leslie Knope. Plan ahead and push forward. When things happen, take a break and come right back to it. Maybe even consider having a co-lead. I did say don't try this alone. Or at least have someone who's at your right hand that you can really depend on. I've shared a lot of struggles that I've encountered the past 2 years, so hopefully this will prepare you. But just know that your carnival doesn't have to be perfect to be memorable. All right, before I show this video, this is going to be a video recap. Does anybody have any questions about what we've talked about so far? Questions, comments, anything? Okay, I think Anne's gonna go ahead and show the video. If you have questions, keep them coming in the chat box. The last little bit you all saw there where we were throwing up the powder, we actually were gifted by our friends group a droid. And so we were using that to fly over and take the pictures, which just came out really pretty. So I hope you enjoyed that video. All right, I want to thank you all for joining me today. I hope that you've learned some things about leading a large-scale community program, and I really hope that you try this out in your communities. It's a really rewarding experience, even if it does make for a super long day and you will end up looking grimy like I did. I've included my contact information on this slide, and I'd love to hear from all of you if you have any questions or you just want to ask me some advice or you want to share some tips that you have that shirt too. It's so exciting. I actually got it at ALA. I love it. So if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me. And the QR code here, you just scan that with a QR code reader, and it will pop up the spreadsheet that I created. You guys can feel free to copy that and adapt it however you want. It's not editable right now so that everyone can view it and copy it. You feel free to steal and adapt it. I really think that that's how we learn in the library world. That's how we learn in the teaching world too, is to steal and adapt. So yeah, feel free. And if there's any other questions and comments, we have some more time and I'd love to chat with all of you. So, oh, you're welcome. We have a comment that says, thank you for your presentation and tips. You're welcome. I'm really happy to share. This is a passion of mine. I really, really love being part of this carnival. It's been my favorite thing I've done at Suffolk Public Library since I started there in 2017. So, yeah.
A great presentation, April. Really good.
Thank you.
I've done a large-scale event like that. We did sort of a mini library conference at the consortium I work for, so I know what it's like to run one of those events, and especially with so many people and moving parts, so it can be hard.
Yeah, and I feel like since this one's outdoors and not at the library, that adds a whole other element of challenge to it. I didn't mention this, but just so you know, everyone, we did ask for a police presence there just for safety reasons. So they blocked off a road for us, and we did have a few officers that were wandering around just, for safety reasons.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So they're willing to do it. You just have to reach out to them. So these kind of events draw such a huge crowd, so you just never know, Yay!
Sure.
There's a comment
and
that
can
says,
you tell me the impact on the library? Did people comment? Did you see a bump in usage? What was the actual down the stream impact?
So our summer reading program has grown significantly. Just doing this and also offering a community goal instead of doing it individual goals. What we've become known for here in Suffolk, and really in this whole area of the Hampton Roads area, is our programming. And people are still coming to our library to check out books, but we won an award for being the most family-friendly entertainment in all of the Hampton Roads area, as voted on by the community of Hampton Roads, which is...
Oh, wow. That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. So people are still coming to our library and checking out materials, but they're also really enjoying our events. I run 3 story times a week, 2 toddlers and 1 baby, and I average 65 to 70 people in every one of my story times. So we jokingly say that I'm Suffolk famous now, but it's definitely been a big impact on the community for sure. Yeah.
I don't know. People may not be aware of just how huge Hampton Roads is, but it's an incredible
really
community. Yeah,
it's really big. So it's all of Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Suffolk. I mean, it's like 7 cities all in one. And then we're not talking about small cities. I mean, Virginia Beach is a good size. So, I mean, I would guess I would equate it to maybe like the Tampa Bay area. But that's where I lived. So we have a lot smaller communities than the Bay Area does. Like I lived in Brandon when I was there, which is a huge city. We don't have a lot of large cities. We just have a lot of small cities that make up this really large area.
Yeah. A lot of stuff going on. I know. It's one of the hardest places to negotiate. All right. Are there any other questions, perhaps, for April or suggestions anyone wants? This was also really great timing for this, just in case anyone would want to do something this summer. They still have plenty of time to get it started.
Absolutely. We just started planning the one for this year. We've only had 1 meeting. So we are really just in the early stages. A lot of the rentals, you can book about 6 months out. So that's when we start planning for it.
And how many years have you done this? Have you done more than one?
This is year 3. 2020 will be year 3. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
All right. I want to thank April for putting this together. Great presentation, and thank you for coming. And somebody's already written down your name, April, so you might be hearing from some people. And remember that we record these sessions and they're available later, so you could hear from people you don't even know have listened to this presentation.
That's great. I'm all for it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for everybody for coming. We hope to see you again soon at another PCI webinar. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.